She told me, I'm keeping my dating apps for validation. I said, fair enough. Then I reactivated mine. Weeks later, she matched with her sister's friend and saw my profile. Her shock was immediate and utterly satisfying. I'm 30, male, and at the time I was dating Lauren, 27, for a little over a year. And if I'm being honest, things have been quietly wrong long before the apps conversation ever happened. The kind of wrong that creeps in slowly so you normalize it, excuse it, tell yourself relationships take work and compromise, and you don't realize you're bending until you look back and see how crooked you become. Lauren was charming in public and casually dismissive in private, the type who framed criticism as honesty and entitlement as confidence, and I played along because I thought that's what being supportive meant. The apps thing came up one night on her couch while she was scrolling Instagram and half watching a reality show. She casually mentioned she'd re-downloaded Hinge and Bumble, not to cheat. She said quickly, but for validation, because it made her feel good knowing people still wanted her. I remember pausing with my beer halfway in my mouth and asking if she was serious. She laughed, like I was naive, and said it was no big deal. Everyone does it. You're not insecure, are you? I told her I wasn't thrilled, but if she needed that to feel good, then fine. She smirked like she'd won something. So later that night after I drove home, I sat in my car for a minute staring at the steering wheel, feeling something shift. Not anger exactly. More clarity. That cold, quiet realization that the rules in this relationship only went one way. So I reactivated my own profile, updated the photos she'd helped me take but always complained weren't exciting enough, and didn't tell her not to be sneaky. But because according to her logic, it wasn't a big deal. The weeks that followed were strange. Lauren seemed lighter, more confident, constantly on her phone, making little comments about how men were trash and how lucky I was she chose me. I noticed she still never offered to pay for anything, never chipped in for gas, even though I drove her everywhere since she'd sold her car and said ride shares were a waste of money. Never planned dates, but always critiqued the ones I planned. I absorbed it like background noise until the night everything came to a head. It was her sister Megan's birthday dinner at a trendy place downtown, the kind with tiny portions and loud music. Megan brought along a group of friends, including Ethan, a guy I vaguely recognized from previous gatherings, friendly, normal, polite, the opposite of the performative crowd Lauren usually gravitated toward. Dinner was fine until Lauren had a couple cocktails and started talking loudly about how relationships kill excitement and how people settle too young, glancing at me like I was supposed to laugh along. Then Ethan's phone buzzed. He glanced at it. His eyebrows shot up, and he went quiet. Lauren noticed immediately. Leaned over and asked what was up. He hesitated, then awkwardly said he just matched with someone he recognized. Lauren's face drained of color as he turned the screen slightly, just enough for her to see my profile, smiling back. The silence at the table was sharp. Lauren stared at me like I'd slapped her. What the hell is that? She hissed. I shrugged and said validation. Remember, fair's fair. Her sister looked between us confused. Lauren excused herself abruptly, storming toward the bathroom. Megan followed. The table erupted into whispers. Ethan looked mortified and apologized even though he'd done nothing wrong. I sat there strangely calm, like I'd already. Emotionally left, Lauren came back red-faced and furious, demanded to know how long I'd been lying to her. I reminded her she'd set the precedent, that she literally told me she was keeping apps for validation. She snapped that it was different, because she was a woman, because men are gross, because she never intended to meet anyone. The hypocrisy was almost impressive. I told her I was done with double standards. She scoffed, said I was overreacting, that it was just an app. The rest of dinner was unbearable. I drove her home in silence. When we got to her place, she refused to get out of the car. Said we needed to talk, that I'd embarrass her in front of her sister. I said she embarrassed herself the moment she decided my feelings mattered less than her ego. She cried, apologized, promised to delete the apps, said she loved me, that she just needed reassurance sometimes. I believed her for about a week, until I noticed she'd simply gotten better at hiding her phone. Things finally snapped a month later at a house party hosted by one of her friends. Loud music, alcohol, the usual. Lauren was in her element. I was talking to someone near the kitchen when I heard her laugh loudly and say, honestly, sometimes I miss being single. It's just more fun. The words landed like a familiar echo. I felt that same cold clarity from before. Walked over and asked if she meant it. She rolled her eyes and said, "Don't be dramatic. It's a joke." Her friends laughed. One of them said, "Relax. You're lucky she even dates you." Something in me shut off. I told her if she wanted to be single, she could have that starting now. I left, drove home, ignored the barrage of calls and texts that followed. The messages progressed exactly how you'd expect. Anger to panic to, apologies to guilt. She claimed she was stranded, that she didn't feel safe, that her phone was dying. I replied once, saying she wanted freedom and she got it. The next day, she showed up at my apartment demanding to talk, accusing me of abandoning her. I told her I didn't abandon her. I left a situation where I was being disrespected. She laughed and said I was too sensitive, that men should be able to take jokes. I told her we were done, that I was done funding her lifestyle, driving her everywhere, being the boring boyfriend she mocked. She panicked when she realized I was serious, asked where she was supposed to go, reminded me she'd basically been living with me. I reminded her she'd chosen not to renew her lease because it was convenient, not because I asked her to move in. She cried, called me heartless, grabbed her things, which amounted to a few bags and toiletries, and left. The aftermath was predictably messy. Her friends texted calling me cruel. Her sister Megan accused me of humiliating Lauren, said she'd given up stability for me. I corrected that narrative every time, calmly, factually, then stopped responding. Lauren posted vague Instagram stories about toxic men and emotional abuse, tagged with 100 hashtags. People reached out asking what happened. I engaged publicly. The truth didn't need my help. It leaked out anyway when enough people who'd been there heard what she'd said when they saw the entitlement firsthand. She tried to get money from me for rent and utilities she'd never paid. Even sent a Venmo request labeled emotional distress, which I declined. She sent a fake legal threat that my lawyer friend laughed at. Eventually, she burned through couches, favors, and sympathy, moved back in with her parents, lost her job after too many absences. The narrative she told was that I ruined her life. The reality was she'd finally run out of people willing to cushion her from consequences. Months later, I ran into Ethan again at a mutual friend's barbecue. He apologized unnecessarily, said matching with me was the most awkward thing that had happened to him all year. We laughed. He told me quietly that seeing how Lauren reacted that night made him rethink some things about the people he surrounded himself with. That stuck with me, because that's really what this whole experience was about, clarity. I've been single since, not bitter, not angry, just peaceful. My apartment feels like mine again. My money stays in my account. My time is my own. I've gone on dates with women who don't need constant validation from strangers, who pay their share without keeping score, who don't confuse confidence with entitlement. My therapist helped me see how gradually I'd accepted less than I deserve, how the apps argument wasn't about apps at all. It was about respect, reciprocity, and boundaries. Lauren thought I'd panic at the idea of losing her, that I'd apologize and fall back into line. Instead, I realized I'd rather be alone than be diminished. Some people still think I was harsh, that I should have communicated more, given more chances. But chances only work when accountability exists, and validation shouldn't come to cost of your partner's dignity. I didn't blow up. I didn't seek revenge. I just stopped participating. And somehow that was the most unforgivable thing of all to someone who'd built a life around being indulged. If that makes me the villain in her story, I'm okay with that. Because in mine, I finally learned what self-respect feels like. And it's quieter than drama, but infinitely better.